Okay, so for my adult novel, I'm going to be reading Stephen King's It, and I'm going to be reading an extract from chapter 3, which is the first meeting of Pennywise and Georgie. And hopefully we can see the difference between a children's novel and an adult novel. So let's go. Now here he was, chasing his boat down the left side of Witcham Street. He was running fast, but the water was running faster, and his boat was pulling ahead. He heard a deepening roar and saw that 50 yards farther down the hill, the water in the gutter was cascading into the storm drain that was still open. It was a long, dark semicircle cut into the curbing, and as George watched, a stripped branch, its bark as dark as glistening as seal skin, shot into the storm drain's maw. It hung up there for a moment and then slipped down inside. That was where his boat was headed. "Oh shit and Shinola!" he yelled, dismayed. He put on speed, and for a moment he thought he would catch the boat. Then one of his feet slipped and it went sprawling, skinning one knee and crying out in pain. From his new pavement-level perspective, he watched his boat swing around twice, momentarily caught in another whirlpool, and then disappear. "Shit and Shinola!" he yelled again, and slammed his fist down on the pavement. That hurt too, and he began to cry a little. What a stupid way to lose a boat. He got up and walked over to the storm drain. He dropped to his knees and peered in. The water made a dank, hollow sound as it fell into the darkness. It was a spooky sound. It reminded him of, "Huh?" The sound was jerked off as if it was on a string, and he recoiled. There were yellow eyes in there, the sort of eyes he had always imagined, but never actually seen down in the basement. "It's an animal," he thought, incoherently. "That's all it is. Some animal, maybe a house cat that got stuck down in there still." He was ready to run. Would run in a second or two, when his mental switchboard had dealt with the shock those two shiny yellow eyes had given him. He felt the rough surface of the macadam under his fingers, and then the sheet of cold waters flowing around them. He saw himself getting up and backing away, and that was when a voice, a perfectly reasonable and rather pleasant voice, spoke to him from the inside of the spawn drain. "Hi, Georgie," it said. George blinked and looked again. He could barely credit what he saw. It was like something from a made-up story, or a movie where you know the animal will talk and dance. If he had been 10 years older, he would have not believed what he was saying, but he was not 16, he was 6. There was a clown in the storm drain. The light in there was far from good, but it was good enough so that George Denborough was sure of what he was seeing. It was a clown, like in the circus or on a TV. In fact, he looked like a cross between Bozo and Clarabelle, who talked by honking his, or was it her? George was never really sure of the gender. Horn on Howdy Doody Saturday mornings, Buffalo Bob was just about the only one who could understand Clarabelle, and that always cracked Georgie up. The face of the clown in the store drain was white. There was a funny tufts of red hair on either side of his bald head, and there was a big clown smile painted over his face. If George had been inhabiting a later year, he would surely thought Ronald McDonald before Bozo or Clarabelle. The clown had a bunch of balloons, all colours, like gorgeous ripe fruits in one hand. In the other hand held Georgie's newspaper boat. "Want your boat, Georgie?" the clown smiled. George smiled back. He couldn't help it. It was a kind smile that you just had to answer. "I sure do," he said. The clown laughed. "I sure do. That's good. That's very good. And how about a balloon?" "Well, sure." He reached forward and then drew his hand reluctantly back. "I'm not supposed to take stuff from strangers. My dad said so." "My dad... Very wise of your dad," the clown in the store drain said, smiling. So, I think just from well, straight off the back, I feel like it's a lot harder to read an adult novel. I personally struggle with sight reading anyway, just because I tend to stutter a lot with my words sometimes, and I sometimes speak too fast, etc. So I feel like because an adult novel is a lot more descriptive than a children's picture book would be, because it has pictures, whereas an adult novel is more descriptive, so you have to take more time to use your voice to really make the audience picture what's going on. So I feel it's definitely a lot harder to read an adult novel, but I think it's the same perspective that you're still putting on voices and accents to draw in the audience. Maybe just not as ridiculous and as over exaggerated as it would be for a children's book. But as you saw through that read through, I did stumble on a lot of the lines, and I almost got mixed up between what voices I was doing as well. But I think that's just because it was just the way that it's written compared to a children's book. It was a lot of jumping between lines and descriptive paragraphs. But that was my comparison between an adult novel and a children's novel. I believe that there's definitely some room for improvement voice-wise for me, because I tend to stutter on my words, obviously, and maybe my articulation could be a lot better as well. But other than that, I feel like I did okay with distinguishing the different voices, possibly, but I definitely think I did better in a children's novel. But yes, so that was my comparison.